How's the market? Is it up? Is it down? Is it good? Is it bad? That's a loaded question, but we're going to answer it for you. This is Jessica Duncan's Just My Opinion, and I'm Jessica. There's no handbook to owning a home. That's why I go beyond the transaction to share my tips and insights for adulting made simple. So today we are talking about the market. I get this question all the time. How's the market? What's the market doing? Well, it's really a loaded question. You truthfully cannot answer that question easily or correctly when someone just says, how's the market? When you say just how's the market, well, which market are you talking about? You could have buyers or sellers. You could have commercial, residential, condo. They're all totally different markets, right? So it's a very generic question. A lot of times when I get asked, the first thing I say is, well, which market are you talking about? Well, tell me more about which area of the real estate market you're wanting to know more about or wanting to know how the market is. But a lot of people just are using it as an icebreaker question. They just want to really talk to you. How's the market doing? It's very vague, right? So I'm going to dig in today on a specific real estate market. So today we're going to be talking about the single family residential market here in Escambia and Santa Rosa County. Now, why did I pull out condos and townhouses and things like that? The reason why is because those can be skewed a little bit, whether they're doing short-term rental or long-term rental on them or second homes, which can really change a market. It's its own market within itself, and it may not reflect as much as this single-family home market here in Pensacola, which is primarily single-family in Escambia and Santa Rosa County. The largest portion is going to be primary residence. Where out on the island where we have a lot of condos, you may have second homes or investment properties, and I feel like that can skew it a lot. So I wanted to make sure for today's purposes, we really break down what market we're talking about, and it is the single-family residential home market in Escambia and Santa Rosa County. So let's just start by talking about the sales. Where have they gone? So if you've listened to me for any length of time or had conversations with me or listened to some of the media, you know that 2024 was a very, very slow year in real estate. 2023 was also a very, very slow year in real estate. So we had these crazy years of 2020, 2021, 2022. Then 2023 started to slow down. 2024 slowed down even more. And what are we doing in 2025? So everything I pulled is January through the end of May because we're right here in June. I wanted to make sure we're comparing year over year. Now, something happened in fourth quarter last year, towards the end of the year last year, was a presidential election. So what I'm comparing is the first 5 months of 2024 to the first 5 months of 2025, because I know last year towards the end of the year that some things changed and we don't want to include that in this part of the year. We want to look at the first part of last year. Just looking at 2024 and 2025 residential sales, they were pretty level. So we're down in 2025 about 85 sales. Not a huge impact, not a huge change. So we're about level of where we were last year. When you really look at list price to sale price, and again, this is the total market, single family residential sales, which we're going to dig into this a little bit deeper on certain price points and things in a minute. But when we just look at the total market, when we look at the list price to sale price, so what something was listing for, so what it actually went on the market at, versus after negotiations it went under contract, what it actually sold for. And really that's almost flat as well. There wasn't a huge amount of change there. Now there are as we break down, but as an overall, there's not. One big change that I saw, though, was new construction. So new construction's average price point dropped from about $389,000 to $363,000. So from 2024, the new construction average price was $389,000. And then in 2025 so far, for the first part of last year, remember, again, same time frame. And then for 2025, we're at $363,000. That's a pretty huge decrease in new construction. I do think a lot of the builders were offering a lot of incentives on top of that. So new construction took a little bit of a hit. They were able to adjust, and they still make up a large percentage of the actual transactions in our market. But resales, when you look at the price of resales, so we talked about new construction going down. Did a resale go down? Actually, it didn't. It actually had a slight increase. So resale homes had a slight increase. And I'll tell you why I think they had an increase overall here shortly when we dig in a little deeper on these neighborhoods. So then we look at days on the market. That's another key factor that people look at for how the market is doing. And days on the market are how many days was a property on the market before it went under contract. Now, you also have what's called cumulative days on the market. So you have days on the market and cumulative days on the market. And the difference between them is if something goes on the market, falls out of contract, and then comes back on the market, that would be your cumulative days on the market. Regular days on the market are just how many days it's on the market until it goes under contract. And this is always important to me to look at if that's going up or down, because it also changes some factors within pricing and how long we wait before we adjust pricing. So to me, this is a huge factor to look at when we talk about the current market conditions. You know, I remember during COVID, people kept saying, we have an inventory problem, we have an inventory problem. And I kept saying, no, we don't. We have a velocity problem. I wrote several articles about it. And this is what I was talking about. We actually, during COVID, had more homes coming on the market for sale than ever before. And we had more homes going under contract. The problem was the days on the market was so low, it was seeming like there was no inventory. So stuff was coming on the market and going under contract super fast. So we had a velocity problem that created this image that we had an inventory problem, but we didn't. So it's important to look at more than just one piece of this information to understand what's going on. So days on the market went from, in 2024, the average was about 58 days. Right now we're sitting about 79 days. So 79 days from 58 days, that's a pretty big change, right? But when we break down the different price points, how did that affect it? So pretty much anything under your lower price points, I'll say 400,000 and below, stayed on the market a lot longer. As we increase in the price points, the actual days on the market started to reduce. And when we got over 800,000, the days on the market dropped dramatically. So your lower end price point was staying on the market longer. Your middle of the road started to get a little better, but then your high end days on the market really started to drop. And that really doesn't surprise me when we look at 2025, just because of what we had going on 2024. We were leading up to a presidential election, and your luxury market does tend to slow down anytime we have a presidential election. So I'm not extremely surprised by it, but it's good to see the numbers telling us that what we thought was going to happen, and now it's starting to bounce back. So when we look at price per square foot, we didn't see huge changes there in the total number. So again, looking at total residential single family homes, didn't see a huge number there. But when I dug into the zip codes, it was really shocking. So there are a couple of zip codes, 32503 and 32563, that saw a huge increase in price per square foot. But again, that's your high-end market. So that doesn't really surprise me as much. 03 is going to be your East Hill area, your downtown area, North Hill area, all those high-demanded areas in Pensacola. 32563 is going to be Gulf Breeze past Live Oak, so not Gulf Breeze proper, but the other side. So they really saw a huge price per square foot price increase. So that average price per square foot went up dramatically. We did have some areas that dropped as well. 32514, which is going to be the area near the University of West Florida, just north of 9 Mile and south of 9 Mile right there. And 32506, which is going to be over towards the west side of Pensacola, Myrtle Grove area. Both of those areas, we actually saw significantly price decreases per square foot. So let's talk about what neighborhoods are hot. I told you which ones had a high price per square foot increase, but which ones are really hot? Which ones had huge amounts of increases with number of transactions and things like that? So to look at this, I really wanted to pull out new construction. And here's why I did that. So new construction, there's certain zip codes that have a large amount of new construction. So if I'm looking at how many houses sold in that zip code in 2024 versus 2025 or in that neighborhood, it could really be skewed by new construction. Maybe there was, and I'll give you an example. When I first looked at this, and this is what made me pull it out, I realized that it said Yellow River Ranch, which was new construction neighborhood in 2024, who sold a lot of houses out there. There was this huge decrease in that zip code area because because of that neighborhood. And I was like, well, wait a minute, let me pull that out. So when I looked at this data, I actually pulled out new construction. So this is just looking at resales, looking at where we had a lower number of transactions in 2024 than 2025, showing the changes in certain neighborhoods that have become hotter. Now, some of these places have been hot, but they have gotten even more hot. So Marcus Point, right in the center of Pensacola, Marcus Point subdivision had over a 200% increase in number of transactions. That is crazy. So 2024 to 2025, a lot more people moved in and out of Marcus Point. New City Tract, that is in that downtown area, had a huge increase as well at about 21%. Cordova Park was up 63%. That's huge. A lot of people moving in and out of Cordova Park, which it has been a high demanded area around here. Now, East King Tract, that again is in that East Hill area, 133% increase there. So that's definitely a hot neighborhood. Casablanca, so that's in that Gulf Breeze proper area. Casablanca, that's in that Gulf Breeze proper area right there between Fairpoint and Sunset. Huge increase there with a 157% increase in number of properties for sale there. And Ashley Plantation out in Pace had a huge increase there of 116%. One that was sort of shocking for me, though, is Holly by the Sea had a pretty big decrease. They actually decreased by a little over 18%. And that's a pretty hot area. And it got me thinking, what caused that? I'm not really sure. I don't know if our military impacts that area a lot. And I haven't been able to find the stats of how many people moved in and out of that area due to the military last year. But I'm wondering if they did not have a decrease in number of PCS assignments here last year, because that seems to be a lot lower than normal, because that's normally a pretty hot place. Some of these stats really aren't shocking when we think about what was going on in the price point and the price per square footage. It's hot areas. They all sort of line up. Our higher end price points were moving a little faster now than the lower end price points, which is quite different, because used to your under 200,000 would move extremely fast. And so the market has sort of changed a little bit right now, and how we price stuff and how we look at time on the market is a little different. So to answer the question, how is the market? I'm going to try and wrap it up into a good little synopsis for you. Inventory is pretty balanced. It's balanced on the seller side. It's balanced on the buyer side. We have about 5.5 months of inventory out there. So that makes a very balanced and stable market when we look at inventory. When we look at pricing, your lower end pricing is taking a little bit longer. Your mid to luxury pricing is surging right now. It is really moving faster and for more money. That entry level is slowing down. It is moving a lot slower and actually has not had as much increase on pricing, if any. And new construction pricing has dropped. So new construction, you're really able to negotiate a lot more. Even though they're offering all those incentives, there's still been a little bit of room to negotiate. Hopefully that helps you understand the market where we are now on the single family residential side. Don't worry, if you're interested in the condo market, the investment market, we'll do more updates on those as well as we go forward. But I like to keep them separate because I think you really have to understand each one of them and talk about them very differently. If you really need to know how the market is doing for your specific thing, of course, reach out to me. I'd love to sit down and talk to you about it. We do this with sellers all the time to decide, is it the right time to sell or should we wait? Matter of fact, talking about that luxury market change last year, right around the presidential election, we had $1 million condo that we put up for sale for some clients and realized pretty quickly that this is not the right time. Like, this is a hot property that we should be getting a lot of action on. We should not be on the market more than a week. And it was really in a tower that stuff doesn't ever come up for sale, and it wasn't moving. And we're like, wait a minute, something's wrong. So we quickly dug in, we pulled it off the market, advised our clients to wait until after first quarter. They waited until we got to the perfect timing. I started to see the increases, and we're actually able to sell that place very fast and make them a great profit on it. So they were super ecstatic. But so if you ever need to know what the time is for your market or what's going on in a specific market or specific to your home, reach out to me, DM me, give me a call. I'd love to talk to you about this. I could geek out and pull up spreadsheets and get all excited about the numbers. So if you want to geek out with me on the numbers, I'd love to do it. So let's go straight into our home hack. And our home hack this week is something that has made my life easier. Hopefully it'll make your life easier as well. If your household is anything like mine, I constantly hear, what do we have to eat? Or I get a phone call, what can I eat? What is there for me to eat? And I'm like, the fridge is full of stuff. Do you not realize that? So I put a dry eraser board. I got these little thin dry eraser boards, no frame, nothing. It just is like almost looks like a sticker that sticks on the front of my fridge that I can write on it with a dry eraser marker. And it says, are you hungry? Lunch, breakfast, snack, dinner. And I keep listed on there what the options are for food. That way our leftovers in the house get ate, because sometimes we have a ton of food in there. They just don't know where to look for it. So I constantly try and remind my husband of where he can get something to eat to make sure all of those leftovers get ate. Hopefully you like that home hack. It's plain and simple, but it makes my life so much easier and avoids those phone calls with what can I eat? This has been Just My Opinion. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed learning about the market and our home hack this week. Make sure you follow us on whatever app you listen to the podcast on, whether you need to like, subscribe, or follow. We never want you to miss an episode. Remember, this has been Just My Opinion for Adulting Made Simple.